May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be always acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. You've probably heard the saying before, whatever the question, love is the answer. Yes? Surprise, surprise, we're talking about love again today. In actuality, it's probably our theme every week, as God is love. Thus, if it is about God, it's about love. But this week, it's straight from Jesus' mouth. Love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. If you're thinking that this sounds familiar, we did recently have this reading. It was just a few weeks ago on Maundy Thursday. Maundy, from the Latin meaning commandment, a new commandment that Jesus has given to us. Love one another. Now, wait a minute, you might be thinking, doesn't Jesus tell us to love each other all the time, as in love your neighbor as yourself? And Jesus didn't even make that up. That was from way back in the Hebrew scriptures, centuries before Jesus. Is it just that we need to be reminded about this? And if Jesus couches it in something shiny and new, maybe we'll pay better attention? Maybe. Or perhaps there is something new, especially in the part, as I have loved you. How would you describe how Jesus has loved you, has loved us? Fiercely, unconditionally, unconventionally, unabashedly? Perhaps it is felt at times he has hounded you. Do you remember a few weeks ago we read about Paul's conversion? He was struck blind, and Jesus said to him, "Why are you persecuting me?" Has Jesus had to track you down like that? Or from today's reading, 3 times Jesus told Peter, "Kill and eat." Has Jesus ever told you something? Maybe in words, maybe it was just a feeling, but something that seems so opposite to what you thought you knew, but it was all about being more loving, more open, and more inclusive. In other words, loving like Jesus loved us. Maybe there is something new here after all. I also want to put this new commandment of Jesus into context of the story, because where it comes in that story makes it even more awe-inspiring. We are at the Last Supper, and Jesus is telling this to his disciples, smack between a betrayal and a denial from those very same disciples. In the verses just before today's reading, Jesus names Judas as the one who will betray him and tells him, "What you are about to do, do quickly." The verses just after our reading have Peter asking, "Why can't I follow you now? I will lay down my life for you." And then Jesus' famous words, "Very truly I tell you, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." And still, Jesus tells us to love. Well, that certainly ups the ante a bit, doesn't it? To love as Jesus loved. He kept on loving, even when he knew there was betrayal and denial from those who were supposed to love him best. Do you wonder, how can I do that? How can I love like Jesus loved? Or maybe it's, how can I love this person or that group? They've been so horrid to me, or they're just such horrible people. It's impossible to love them. How did Jesus do it? You know, Jesus never said to worship him or create a new religion about him. He said to follow him. And one of the surest ways we can follow him is to do our best to live into this new commandment, to love one another as he loved us. If this seems really hard at times, it is. We are not Jesus. But I do have a few thoughts to share about how we can practice this. First, let's look to the reading from Revelation, where Jesus says, "I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end." He is the all. He doesn't need anything from us. If we love only so that we get something in return, that's not quite it. Now, it gets tricky because I do believe that if you send out love, you will get love in return. It's just the physics of energy. Some folks may call that karma. So yes, it may be what happens, that when we love by giving love, that we receive love by giving love. But that can't be our motivation behind our loving, or it just doesn't work. Jesus has told this to us before. Remember in Luke where he says, don't invite your friends and family to the banquet just because they can invite you back. Rather, invite the poor and the lame, those who can't repay you in kind. Have you had that experience where you did something just for the point of doing something good for another, and yet you felt like you got more out of it than they did? For me, this was very evident when I did pastoral care rounds for my clinical pastoral education. I went to the hospital each shift and offered to sit with, or chat with, or pray with the people who were there. I always hoped they benefited from it because I know I felt so joy-filled afterwards. And I choose to believe that Jesus was also filled with joy by loving others, including us. He didn't need anything from us, but still, he received. Another way we can follow Jesus and how he loved us is to know when we need to go out and recharge ourselves. Where is that place for you? For many, it may be the beach, the mountains, or the garden. But whatever it is, intentionally make time for it regularly. Jesus did this. He would do his teaching and preaching and healing, and then he would go off by himself. Even Jesus needed time and space to recharge. You can't give from an empty well. It's not a sign of weakness, but rather a sign of wisdom to know what you need and then give it to yourself. One way I do this is by hiking in Arizona. I have family out there, so I visited a bunch over the years. One aunt in particular is my hiking buddy. For those who saw the pictures in Friday's newsletter, Arizona's where they came from. When I'm out there, I feel so connected to the land and to creation. It helps to fill me with love so I can go out and spread that love. The travel's kind of a pain, but it's well worth it. And I was given more lessons of how to love while out on the trail. First, love generously. In fact, over the top generously. One day we went to an iris garden and we saw these flowers that were so delicate and the intricacy of all the different iris. It was so amazing. And while they were all iris, each variety had its own unique beauty. And the blooms only last a few days. All that care and love that goes into it, and it is so fleeting. A purely business perspective may say that it's wasteful. Propagating the seed can be done much more efficiently. But God is never stingy with his love. May our love be just as lavish. Another lesson is that we are all in this together. We spent a day hiking in the Ponderosa Pine Forest, and I was reminded of how the trees communicate with each other and help each other. Though to our eyes they seem all separate, in actuality they are connected, first with underground mycorrhizal networks. And it's also thought that they can release chemicals in the air and communicate that way as well. They are all one unit, and what happens to one can affect what happens to all. How can we show our connection in loving each other? In brief discussions with other hikers, one realizes that we are all on the same fragile journey, even if we're hiking in opposite directions or at different speeds. You want to share tips and warnings because you know to keep another healthier and safe will circle back to your own health and safety. This time, we are able to give a ride to a fellow hiker, and we remembered how others had so generously helped us in the past. We were able to pay it forward. This keeps the cycle of love going and growing. Next, Jesus knew that all the parts, in other words, all of us, are important. He dined with sinners and tax collectors. He healed the lame and the women, and he welcomed the little children. On one hike, we passed a short trail with several signs talking about fire. They spoke both of the damage it can do and how essential it is to the life cycle of various members of the plant kingdom, and thus for all of us. The Native Americans who lived there long ago figured this out long before the European settlers did. As so often happens, when we try to outsmart Mother Nature, think some parts are only bad and have to get rid of it at all costs, things don't work out so well. How can we learn to love so that all the parts of creation can let their unique wisdom shine forth? The trail also showed what to do when love can be prickly. Remember those people that was so hard to love? The Sonoran Desert is known for its saguaro cactus, the ones that stand up with their arms all sorts of ways. I love being in their midst. They are so stately, you can just feel their ancient wisdom as you walk past. One memorable cactus had its arms almost encircling another cactus, but it left just enough room so it didn't get poked by the other spines. When we love, we don't want to smother another, but be close enough so that they can feel our support. It always amazes me how certain birds and other critters have evolved to live in and among the cactus. Think about that creativity when you encounter people or groups who seem prickly and are hard to love. Everyone has gifts. Part of loving like Jesus loved us is to help others be able to express those gifts in unique ways. And of course, don't forget the most obvious. First, we are loved by Jesus, and only then can we go out and share that love. And finally, to love like Jesus loved us, be the inspiration, be the example. Jesus was, and in part, this is what it means to follow Jesus. Don't wait for your favorite politician to be elected. Don't wait for your family to do something. Don't even wait for your church to act. Dig into the deep, deep well of God's love and let it shine out from you. In every situation, you can respond with love. Even if you are disagreeing with someone, even if you are totally exasperated with them, you can move forward with love. Not the sappy kind of love, but love deeply rooted in God's love, the love that binds all things together, the love that makes you feel the intimate connection of one human to another, of one of God's loved creatures to another. And by this, everyone will know that we are Jesus' disciples. Amen.